is entitled Making Connections Within Your Agency, 3 Case Studies from Oklahoma. And our distinguished speaker today, of course, is Michael Molina. I'd like to I know Michael is very much a known force within our community, but I would still like to go ahead and read the bio. Maybe there is something new about him that you'll find out in the next minute or so. Michael Molina is the head librarian at the Oklahoma Transportation Library. He has served in that position for nearly 5 years now, helping to grow the library through increased digital content, a larger online presence, and various projects and partnerships. Most recently, the library has expanded to its staff to include an additional librarian. That's great news. In a previous life, Michael pursued a career in academia, receiving a PhD in history. Michael later fell in love with the library profession, however, and received his MLIS. And we're all the better for that, I think. Michael has worked in public libraries as well as the state DOT library, and he has a passion for sharing knowledge and connecting communities. And I think that's in large part going to be a major theme of the presentation he'll be giving us. I just want to, not to take up too much time here, but I did want to make mention that first of all, we're all very fortunate to have Michael as a valued member of our transportation libraries community. My own recollection is that I think Michael and I have we've met plenty of times online and that kind of thing. I think we've actually met in person a couple of times at least. The last time being, I believe, what would have been the TRV meeting in January 2020. And I remember after one of those meeting days, after spending the whole day at the convention center, a group of the librarians in attendance went to a restaurant there in Washington, D.C. And they would have nice dinner there and everything. A group of us, I'm sure several of you looking at the names here were with us that time. Anyway, though, it was the end of a long, busy day. I ended up picking up a beverage there. I'll just call it that, a beverage there at the bar on the way to where we were gathering to meet. It's easier said than done for me often to try to balance a beverage in one hand and push a rollator with the other. Michael, bless his heart, was very happy to help me out there and made sure the beverage made it from the bar to the dinner table intact without any problems there. And anybody who helps me in that way has become my friend for life. So, having said that, I'd like to now formally introduce for his presentation my lifelong friend, Michael Molina, and also our esteemed colleague, Michael. So the floor is all yours, Michael.
Thank you so much, Bob. And I think from our previous conversation, I think I still owe you a drink, a beverage of your choice. So next time we meet in person, that'll happen. So, all right. Thank you again so much for those kind words. And I look forward to presenting today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let me know if that pops up okay, if everyone can see that, the presentation. Okay, good deal. All right. So first off, I just want to thank everyone for attending. I mean, this is a very great topic. I think I'm very passionate about bringing communities together. And when Bob approached me for a potential topic to talk about, this was one of the ideas that we had discussed about forging networks and connections within your own agency, something that I've become a bit familiar with as we've moved along. So hopefully people will find some use out of our own case studies, some of the work that we've done at our own organization, and we can have some good lessons learned and some good discussions about this later on. So moving forward, I wanted to talk about 3 case studies specific to our organization. Notably, work we've done with knowledge management. Some of you may know about the pooled fund study, as well as a workforce development project that we've worked on with Oklahoma Department of Transportation and our own library. So we'll start off with the knowledge management project. The origin of this began around May 2018 during the first meeting of the AASHTO Committee on Knowledge Management in Oklahoma City. Attendees included representatives from the Oklahoma Department of Transportation's Office of Research Division. They were impressed by the potential to leverage knowledge management best practices in their agency and felt partnering with their library was a natural fit, since librarians, by definitions, are managers of knowledge. They requested as their librarian that I attend a meeting to discuss the potential of knowledge management at the DOT. I started off meeting with members from the DOT's Office of Research who introduced me to the rest of the knowledge management team, which included representatives from human resources and a field division. This was important as I was getting to meet people who I otherwise may not would have come into contact with, but who may have been learning about the library's capabilities to assist them for the first time. They wanted the library to conduct a literature review of knowledge management in other state DOTs and to begin work on recruiting a consultant that could assist ODOT with its implementation of knowledge management. I had connections within the School of Library Science at the University of Oklahoma, so I started my search there for a consultant. I reached out to some of my library science professors who recommended someone to interview. We eventually hired that person and began examining how to make knowledge management more efficient at ODOT. The first year of the project culminated in a presentation to ODOT senior staff, including the Secretary of Transportation. We focused on cost savings for the agency, using examples such as by implementing KM best practices, how much they would save time in onboarding, getting new hires up to speed faster, tearing down silos of information, and enabling people to spend more of their time doing work rather than searching for information. Senior staff was impressed and gave the go-ahead to continue with the project. Eventually, we expanded the team to include more representatives from human resources, IT, and other departments. The project is now in its 4th year, and we're working on embedding a knowledge management liaison in every division in the agency. The project was unique in that not a lot of people knew what knowledge management was at first. So any new interaction we had with potential partners involved some level of explanation on how it would benefit them. Tailoring the message to fit the audience was key. For example, in human resources, their key issues were creating a new onboarding system and finding out what pain points new employees had. We assisted them with onboarding and developed a survey to gauge employee satisfaction in several areas. This helped cement our relationship with human resources and, through our outreach to new employees, established us as an entity that they were familiar with. For senior staff, focusing on technological solutions to problems as well as saving money was a valuable component of our messaging. Overall, the project has been very successful and we've been approved for an additional year. Before we get into key takeaways though, I'd like to talk about a couple more projects first. The next project is the Library Pooled Fund Study. As many of you may know, we've been engaging in a pooled fund study for a couple years now. We've had some great successes in digitizing members' materials, creating resource guides, and developing new resources for librarians. This project, like the Knowledge Management Project, also began in 2018. What was different about this one was rather than the agency coming to us with an issue, we decided to approach the agency. First, for context, I'd like to give a little background on how I started at the library. I started at the Oklahoma Transportation Library in 2017 and didn't know the first thing about transportation beyond, driving my car to work every day. I was brand new to the field and I knew even less about the key players, institutional history, and important projects that had gone on in transportation librarianship, such as the previous pooled funds, or even what was important to transportation librarians. Through getting involved with various organizations such as the Knowledge Network, Transportation Librarians Roundtable, and networking with my new peers, I found out about something called the Transportation Librarians Pooled Fund. It seemed like a really awesome project that helped out a lot of professionals, and I started having conversations about what it would take to restart this. I connected with Renee McHenry, formerly of Missouri DOT, via the Transportation Knowledge Network, and she was extremely helpful in providing information. The more I learned, the more it seemed like we needed a new iteration of this project. I approached one of our key contacts at ODOT from the Office of Research about the potential of ODOT supporting a new pooled fund. Oklahoma hadn't been the lead on too many pooled funds, so the timing worked out as it was a good opportunity to expand its role in this area. With official support to explore further, we developed a survey to send out to all state DOT libraries in the country, as well as other transportation libraries we could identify. We also had extensive meetings with members of the transportation knowledge networks to explore what objectives might be important to include. We got the surveys back in 2019 and from there started work on a proposal with the current objectives we have now. We came up with a budget and received approval to begin work on starting up the new pooled fund. And I want to mention that the Office of Research at ODOT was vital, completely vital to helping support this project all the way through. So we came up with a budget and received approval to begin work on starting up the new pooled fund. There were several elements that were very important in this. First, there was an identifiable need within the community. From the transportation library standpoint, there were a lot of agencies in need of support in digitization, Section 508 compliance, and just figuring out how transportation libraries can continue to thrive given a lack of broad-based institutional support. From our own DOT's standpoint, it was good timing as ODOT was interested in taking on more leadership roles in a pooled fund. Having an established working relationship with ODOT's Office of Research, as I mentioned, was key, and major personnel from that office helped recommend the pooled fund to senior staff. The Office of Research was extremely supportive of the library and was instrumental in helping further this relationship grow. The last project is relatively new at our organization, but it's quickly becoming one of our key areas of expertise. For context, our library is in a unique position, whereas we're not actually based within our DOT. ODOT contracts with a university to provide library services, so while our main patron is ODOT, we're based out of the University of Oklahoma. Our organizational structure consists of myself, a half-time librarian, a student worker, and a library committee consisting of representatives from the university and the DOT. One of the faculty on this committee was involved in a workforce development project for the DOT and requested library assistance, having been impressed by our work in the knowledge management area. They specifically needed a survey developed to see what trainings the university could offer to DOT employees and needed to connect with ODOT's human resources, which we already had a working relationship with from previous projects. I connected both groups and helped develop and distribute the survey and analyzed results for a final report. Through our conversations between the university and ODOT Human Resources, we identified further needs that we could help with. We ended up recruiting a consulting firm to explore further workforce development at ODOT and created a series of recommendations based on interviews and surveys with employees from DOTs across the country. This required funding, which the university and ODOT helped provide, with the university representative acting as PI and the library supplementing support. Eventually, this dovetailed into the knowledge management project we were already working on, as there were quite a few crossover areas we could engage with. This led to increased meetings, forming and enlargement of committees, and including buy-in from other departments. It's safe to say that this was a unique situation that never would have happened without our original engagement with the knowledge management project and our contacts from the university. In general, the key point with all of these projects is developing the relationships and connections between departments and between organizations to create the kind of network where you become knowledgeable about what people's problems are and can hopefully be in a position to provide solutions to those problems or connect people with those who can. Excuse me. So what does all this mean for you? These are a bunch of unique situations caused by what seems like a perfect storm. How can something like this happen at your own agency? What external or internal forces may hamper development of the kinds of relationships that lead to opportunities to help? Ideally, you're already thinking of someone that's an important node in your network of contacts, someone who can act as a champion on your behalf, spreading the good word about your library and filling you in on the goings-on of the agency. What if you don't have that person though, or you're in an organization that discourages outreach? Maybe the culture is just not that supportive. Let's go over a few roadblocks and see how we can overcome this. The first is, what if the agency doesn't like it when you do non-library related things? Then I'd say that's a failure of imagination on their part. Depending on how you wordsmith it, anything can be library related. Take knowledge management and workforce development, for example. What does this have to do with the library? Well, everything. Knowledge management is a key function of a librarian, and helping develop and educate the workforce is also one of the roles of a librarian through dissemination of knowledge, connecting people with training materials, and so forth. Focus on a specific target audience and tailor your message to that audience. Maybe the higher ups don't care about worker satisfaction, but they do care about saving money. Go at it from that angle. Find out where they are coming from and what their concerns are, and see how best you can approach them. Maybe you're on a metaphorical island and nobody knows you exist. Some tactics I've found to have been helpful include seeing what meetings are being held at the agency and exploring ways the library could fit into that meeting agenda. Librarians are good about linking any topic to the library, so see if there's a way you can get in on those meetings to bring up related materials. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and introduce yourself to people. There's been times I've had a patron request for an item we didn't have, but maybe our survey division had something. So I'd look up in our directory who the point of contact was and call that person and ask about their request. I take the time to let them know that they have a library and a librarian with a catalog and a lot of useful information. Either way, one more person at the agency knows you exist who may not have before. Sometimes, though, you can't just break through to department heads or administration no matter how hard you try. That's when reaching out to your patron base can help. We had one new hire at the agency looking for study materials for the PE exam. We started talking about how he liked working there, and since I was involved in the workforce development project at the time, I brought it up and asked if he had any issues as a new hire, such as finding information, knowing what he needs to know, and questions like that. Librarian-related ideas. He was more than happy to talk to someone about this, and what I found out was many people are. They just want someone to engage with and let their voices and concerns be heard. This helped give me insight and information on potential problems that I could voice to appropriate superiors. I will warn you though, be mindful when you're talking about problems. Make sure you couch the language in opportunities rather than issues with the agency. No one wants to hear that they're doing a bad job, but they do want to know ways to be better and to be solutions oriented. Think of ways that the library can help. As a librarian, what skill sets have you developed that could assist in a particular situation? From offering a cursory literature review on a topic, to reaching out to old MLIS contacts who might specialize in a particular field, or engaging with the networks you're involved in, never be afraid to ask questions and offer your assistance. This bleeds into the last point about not knowing what issues you can help with. That's when, with agency approval of course, you could try developing a survey targeting a particular audience to see what issues they're having. Maybe you want to survey library users on their experience with your catalog or finding information in general. Maybe it's targeting a specific agency department to see what their pain points are. Are they frustrated in trying to find things? Is information locked in silos? Even just knowing what these issues are can better equip you when you talk within your agency. You never know what bringing up a certain point in conversation could lead to. Now for the biggest roadblock, and that's time. It's great and all to identify problems that a librarian could help solve, but where do you find the time to handle this on top of your already crazy schedule? Librarians are already expected to do so much with so little, adding one extra thing could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. This is where setting limits can be important. If you've identified a problem that you can help with, make sure your boss understands the time it's going to take to focus on this and that certain things may be prioritized over others. If you're hired based on a contract, make sure there's appropriate language laying out your responsibilities so you don't get overworked. Lastly, never try to eat the elephant all at once. Breaking things down into workable components is key. Say you need to develop a survey to gauge the needs of a specific community. That's going to take some time. So break it up into manageable parts. Lay it out into a multi-week or multi-month period. Week 1, spend an hour in a meeting exploring these issues and getting a baseline of what information you want to collect. The second week, you can spend an hour, either all at once or spread out across the work week, putting questions into a survey tool. It doesn't have to be an hour. It could be 30 minutes or even 15. Either way, no matter how much or how little time you spend on a project, that's more work accomplished towards it than if you spent no time at all. And adding it all up at the end of the month can yield some really impressive results. The other biggest problem is money. Again, it's great to have a project, but how do you pay for it? It may seem daunting, but one of the first steps is seeing who is willing to volunteer. For example, if there's a problem in human resources, they may be willing to spend some of their working time to help you address this issue. Within my agency, when we started on a new project, the contract language of the project proposal stated that the librarian would be paid from existing contracts for this work, meaning my current salary would stay the same. I just devote a part of my library work to work on the new project, so no extra costs were incurred for the agency. What if you need to hire a consultant or get additional funding for a project? First, see if there are grants available. You'd be surprised what agencies or organizations exist to help fund projects. The TRB has put together a lot of helpful information with their funding sources for transportation guide. Secondly, it's always important to be engaged within the university system. Our library has a good policy of regularly reaching out to universities that have engineering or transportation related programs to talk to students, engage with faculty, and see how we can assist in research. It's been a great boon for us to be able to exist within that space. Someone there may know of a grant or research opportunity to apply for, or even a faculty with existing funding to partner with. Now, I recognize this is a very ideal scenario, so your best bet is to stay lean. If you've identified a project, like I mentioned, break it down into workable components. Devote as little or as much time as you're able. See what existing tools you can use. Microsoft Teams has been a great platform to create working groups, to post information, host and record meetings, and engage with specific communities. We've also developed wikis within Teams to archive all project-related materials for easy access and reference. There are plenty of free online survey tools you can use as well, and there's no better way to see how people feel about something besides direct conversation than through a survey. It's how we found out the needs of members of the pooled fund and identified workforce development ideas within the agency. Also, I found that when organizing meetings, using whenisgood.net is a fast and easy tool to quickly find availability for people. So to quickly recap, if you're starting a project, surveys are great for gathering data. Microsoft Teams is our go-to for organizing and accessing information and hosting meetings. And Whenisgood is great for finding availability. And lastly, see if there's volunteers within the agency who share similar concerns about issues. If they know a problem exists and you're offering to help provide a solution, you'd be surprised how many people may be willing to devote some of their time to be able to help. So we've gone over quite a bit. I know this is a lot of information, and it does sound like a lot of work. So how does all this benefit you? First, it raises awareness of your library. All the cold calling, the engaging with people, sending out surveys, developing relationships, all informs people that your library exists. Secondly, and most importantly, it demonstrates library value. With so many libraries on the chopping block these days, it's more important than ever to demonstrate that libraries can be progressive and versatile problem solvers that enhance an agency's ability to thrive, rather than being just a money sink with information that, quote, anyone can Google. It shows you're proactive and engaged in agency culture and willing to offer your unique and irreplaceable skill set to solve some of the most pressing problems. You're also creating a network of champions who recognize what the library does and how it can help the agency. They're not going to forget that one time you helped solve a problem or connected them with a resource. And the more departments you can engage with that kind of problem solving, the more secure and appreciated you'll be for your skill set. Lastly, it increases your own capabilities to address agency problems. Like I mentioned, when I first started, I didn't know the first thing about transportation. I didn't know much about knowledge management either or workforce development. But the more projects you engage with, the more of a subject matter expert you'll become. You'll enhance your skill set, be more marketable, and help demonstrate how invaluable it is to have a librarian on any team. For the last slide, I wanted to offer some brief key takeaways. Start with building a network with people in various departments and divisions, as we've discussed. The more you keep your ear to the ground in these areas, you're more likely to identify issues that a librarian could address. As you talk about these issues with people and find ways to help, you'll develop champions in these areas, key people who are proponents of the library, and will help connect you with other people and provide opportunities that you may not have known about. As you become more aware of these issues and opportunities, see how you can build off of them. See how projects may be interconnected to ensure long-term sustainability. For example, we started with a small project in knowledge management. As it grew, it incorporated elements of workforce development. Now it's a larger project with more people involved, ensuring the library will play a key role in increasing agency efficiency. If the agency's culture doesn't encourage these kinds of connections and network development, don't be afraid to be proactive. Seek out people at any level to see what their issues might be and how you can address them. Finally, communication really is key. Try to have regular meetings with individuals within your agency. See what meetings are already going on and see if you can attend. Insert yourself where you can, when you can, so you can become more involved and knowledgeable about issues impacting the agency. Developing those networks and making those connections is really key, not just within your organization, but outside of it as well. Staying connected with your fellow professionals through groups like the National Transportation Knowledge Network and the Transportation Librarians Roundtable will help you be better informed about the issues and better equipped to be an invaluable asset to your organization. Lastly, I wanted to provide a list of resources. I'll include this in the PowerPoint that we send out about, I'm sure a lot of you know of these resources already, but just in case, we found NTKN to be invaluable. The AASHTO Committee on Knowledge Management offers their regular meetings, which has been fantastic. And the funding sources for transportation information, if you need help with grants and funding, as well as the Transportation Library Community Advocacy Group on LinkedIn, which if you're in the field, that is something you definitely want to involve yourself in. So thank you for this opportunity to present. I'm sorry my voice kind of gave out midway through, so thank you for suffering through that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bob for a Q&A.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. Wonderful presentation. In keeping with the usual guidelines, if anybody has anything that, and I think David already touched upon this anyway at the near the start of the hour, if anybody has anything that they would like to provide in terms of questions or comments for Michael, just go ahead and do the digital raising of the hand, and I will be sure to call on you. If I, for some reason, do not acknowledge you, I'm not trying to ignore you. Maybe it's my eyesight, I don't know. But if that happens and I'm just not calling you, feel free to unmute and just call out my name or something, so I'll acknowledge you. And it looks like we already have somebody with a raised hand, and I can't quite tell who it is, but if that person wants to go ahead and unmute and provide a question or comment, that'll be great.
Thanks, Bob.
Ron, okay.
Yeah, Ron Kerb, I'm with the Oklahoma Transportation and have the library contract with University of Oklahoma. And it's been a good partnership, and I appreciate everything Michael and his staff is doing for the library and all the expanded services that we've been providing through that contract. And also great presentation, Michael, as usual. I really appreciate
Ron.
that. Before we get started too deeply in all the possible questions or comments, would you mind sharing the homepage and the virtual library tool that we use, just to kind of show how we can engage with our DOT on how quickly you can find resources through that method?
Sure, great point. Thank you, Ron. I'm always a fan of some promotion here, so let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. This is our main library webpage in case anyone hasn't been to it. It's oktl.org. Don't go to .com. That's going to take you to some shady websites. The .org is important. So this is our main library. When you go here, we have our catalog. And what we're really proud of especially is our virtual library, where you can click on here. And I know some of you have seen this already, but it takes you to a link to our own virtual library where you can enter, you can explore, you can interact and click on certain items and be taken to links and collections. So especially during COVID, we found this to be a really invaluable asset to our collection. So you can click on and explore books and things like that. So a lot of cool, fun things at our virtual library. So check us out at oktl.org. Always some fun stuff that you can find when you can't make it to the library in person. So thanks for that, Ron.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Ron. And I did find the other show of hands here, so I'll go ahead and start off with Sheila. Sheila, go ahead. Sheila Hatchell from Minnesota DOT.
Thank you, Bob. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Sheila. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks.
I want to congratulate you on all you've accomplished in 5 years. That's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Two of them were under COVID, which makes it even more amazing. So thank you for being such a leader in the field. My question has to do with your advocacy group. I presume it's a library advocacy group. I'd like to hear more about like what kind of people are on the group, and do you have a name for it, and how often do you meet?
Sure, that is, let me take you to the link for that. That's under Kevin Barnes, actually. She runs the Library Advocacy Group, and it's a part of the National Transportation Knowledge Network. And Kevin, if you're on the line, please feel free to jump in and interrupt me. Let me go ahead and share my screen here.
I actually meant the one that you have at Oklahoma, because didn't you mention you have a group that meets and...
Right. Yeah. You mean our advisory board? Yeah.
Yes.
So this has been a fantastic experience for us because when the library was contracted with the University of Oklahoma, they created an advisory board, like a council, to help oversee the management of the library, the hiring of employees, and services. And so we have representatives such as Ron Kerb from ODOT, and from the University of Oklahoma, such as Dr. Musharraf Zaman, who I believe is also on the line as well. And so we have an interdisciplinary, interorganizational group that helps oversee this library and provides input on its growth, its projects that it can do. And we usually have meetings every 2 months or so where we provide project updates to both ODOT and the university. And we find out ways that we can help better services for all agencies. And one of the projects that came out of that was cross-listing our catalog in all the universities in our state. Like, that's one of the projects we're working on. So we want to be seen as a library of the entire state, not just the University of Oklahoma. So we've had some fruitful things come up from the diversity of viewpoints from the state side and from the academic side as well. So we found that really helpful to be enmeshed in both of those cultures.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila. And next, I'd like to call on Enid White from the Wyoming Department of Transportation. Enid, you have a question or comment for Michael?
I just wanted to say fantastic as always, Michael.
Thanks, Enid.
As I sat here, I thought, oh my God, you have done so much in such a short time and turned the Oklahoma Library into a real premier library. Plus, you're a mentor for people all over the United States. So, kudos to you, Michael. Thank you so much for what you do. Keep doing it because we need people like you.
I'm going to have to cover my screen. I'm blushing, Enid. Thank you.
Thank you, Enid. And I agree with everything you just said there too, to help Michael blush even further. Next we have Musharraf Zaman. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Michael can correct me, but go ahead, Musharraf.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. This is really great listening to Michael. I talked to him. So, when the library moved from Oklahoma Transportation Library moved to University of Oklahoma, we were kind of nervous. We did not know the direction, how to actually elevate, the services of the library, but working closely with ODOT and our other partners and having Michael has made such a big difference, such a big difference. So I think, this is one thing I just want to just amplify a little bit on what Michael touched on is the workforce development component. As you know that the DOTs are actually losing large numbers of employees at both the state and federal level with significant knowledge. And how do we actually, as we recruit new people and elevate them in their respective positions, we cannot wait for 20 years. We cannot wait for 10 years or 15 or 30 years. We have to actually provide them with tools. So Michael actually has been instrumental to working with ODOT and Federal Highway Administration to actually capture that institutional knowledge. And I think this is one of the things we also would like to mention that, we're also going to seek funding under the bill that they call bipartisan infrastructure law, for some continued funding from the University Transportation Center, where Michael is also playing a key role. This is so I do not know how to express my feeling, but we're fortunate, I really mean it, to have Michael actually being the lead librarian of Oklahoma Transportation Library. And I think we have a long way to go, but I think we are really moving. I really believe that we are moving in the right direction. And other part of Michael is that anything you ask him, he will never say no, and he will always have some good ideas. So I can testify. So take this, Bob, as my testimony that I think, and working together, this is the other thing Michael has shown that if you work closely with the agency and other stakeholders, you can make things happen. And Michael is a prime example. We're really, really fortunate to have him in our group. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaman. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Musharraf. Greatly appreciated. Good. That's what I call great feedback. I want to ask Kara Marcus also has something she'd like to share here. So go ahead, Kara.
Michael, as always, so tremendously impressed by your presentation. You're really a role model to us all. Looking at it, make it seem very easy, and I'm sure it's not. So can you talk for a minute about, say, a situation where you had a project and because of different factors, it wasn't moving in the way you had hoped, and how you sort of moved it from sort of an issue to a resolution?
Sure. Thank you, Kara. It's always a pleasure working with you, by the way. We've done presentations in the past for the our annual transportation library meeting. Kara is a wonderful colleague to work with, so I appreciate your attendance and your comments. So an issue that may not have worked out so well or something to overcome, I think definitely lies in communication. I know sometimes a lot of things can get lost over email, especially during COVID when you don't have that face-to-face, and maybe you send something to a consultant or to one of your contacts, and maybe it doesn't come across the way you think it should. That's one issue where we've had to resolve. And when you can't talk to a person directly, I think picking up the phone and calling someone, that's the best thing to clear the air to help solve an issue. So email, not always the best tool. Direct conversation through phone or in person if possible. We had another issue where maybe we don't hear from someone that we need to hear from in a timely fashion, especially when deliverables are on the line. And, on your end, you're like worried and freaking out a little bit like, oh my gosh, what can you do if you can't reach someone? So that's happened in the past before. And, outside of, just calling, trying to communicate, sometimes just kind of picking up the slack and doing what you can on your own to help mitigate that, even though it's extra work, sometimes that's necessary. So I think just finding ways where you can insert yourself and be as helpful as you can in any situation has always been my go-to. So.
Great. Thank you, Kara. Fortunately, I think we have about 15 minutes or so left in the hour for anybody else who has comments or questions. 15 minutes, we have a little bit more than that, but I would like to wrap up things towards the end of the hour just because I have a couple of announcements to make, at least one announcement to make. But anyway, though, if anybody else has any questions or comments for Michael, please feel free to let us know by way of raised hand. I'll be keeping on the lookout for that. I guess I'll use this opportunity to throw in at least one question here, Michael. I guess a comment, well, on its way to becoming a question here as I talk. I know in one of the slides you had raised the very important point. I mean, a lot of what you said definitely resonate with me. I'm sure resonate with the other people here, just in terms of some of those obstacles, like what are the challenges? I mean, things can look awfully daunting when you try to embark on this, the kind of efforts that you've been describing with respect to partnerships and projects. I know that it was the last one thing you had listed on one of your slides there, and hopefully I wrote it down correctly, that people will say to themselves, or maybe to others, I don't know how to find out what issues I can help with. And I would say that that's a very very key point. And I think one of the dangers as a result is first of all, you might not do anything at all, or you might do something that could be probably even a little worse. You might start making some assumptions or misreading what the problems are and that kind of thing. And I've encountered that plenty of times. I know you have, and others here have. And I guess I was wondering if you could address that more on a couple of levels. First of all, if you have any cautionary tales or maybe even positive lessons as far as being able to have everybody on the same page and being able to recognize and embrace what the actual issue is. But the other level too is sometimes even when everybody might agree with the big picture issue, there still might be miscommunications, faulty assumptions within that big picture, the smaller pieces of the picture. And I guess the part of that question I'd like you to address is how do you get everybody back together on the same page? So if you would, however you want to approach those questions, it's fine with me.
Sure, and those are fantastic questions. I think, yeah, I've definitely encountered some of those in these projects. And for your first part, there's been times where I've made faulty assumptions about what was being asked and what we needed to do. And sometimes this would be over the phone and I'd think I'd be following, but sometimes I wasn't as much as I should have been. Like I'd be writing things down and taking notes and referring back to them. And sometimes I didn't quite capture it all. And so a lot of that can be just excused with, could you clarify? I'm not quite sure I understood or what was going on. And like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there to say, hey, could you repeat this? I'm not sure I understood. I think in this field it's pretty important not to have too huge of an ego to be able to say, hey, we need to slow down. I need some clarification on what's going on. Now, if there are times where certain meetings get away from you, where people are talking about things that maybe you're not able to deliver on, we've had that as well. And we've called that like project scope creep, where like in knowledge management, for example, we may have some members of the agency saying, we want to do this and we want to do this. But in our contract for that year, it only says we can do this. So we've been really good about having our consultant help rein things in and say, well, we can save that for later. Here's what we can get done in this year. This is what we're tasked to do, but that's a great idea. And we can follow up with that in a subsequent, task order, maybe next year. So I think helping someone keep things in scope is always pretty vital with that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it really does impress upon me what a tightrope act it can be. I mean, I would never envy you in that kind of situation. You really need to have that skill set, part of your skill set where you really have to, like you said, the open communication, but also you have to, just, I don't need to tell you, or I probably don't need to tell anyone here for that matter, but you really have to really navigate carefully and everything like that. But I'm guessing that's one of your big advantages, Michael, that you're indeed able to do that, and it's probably something that's been even further sharpened as you've proceeded through these projects and partnerships.
If I may, I think if anyone can spend time in a public library, I would wholeheartedly recommend it. You meet so many different people working among the public, from the biggest personalities to the smallest, each one needing a different kind of help. So learning how to approach each one from where they're coming from, above all being empathetic to their needs and just learning how to navigate that, I think that has helped prepare me more than a lot of things, like taking a course on it. Like just being thrown out there in the public and helping all kinds of folks, I think has been a tremendous help. So if you have an opportunity to serve in your public library, don't hesitate.
Good points. Enid, you have something to say.
Yeah, Michael, I'm going through your virtual library, and I want to know, did you guys build this program? Is it copyrighted? Can I borrow? Is there a license fee to use this program? How did you build it?
Yeah, so
where did it come from?
And actually, I think Kara Marcus also kind of built off of this too. She created her own with the same platform that we're using. So yeah, it's actually, let me share my screen real quickly and show you where I got this from. So Genially is the name of the website, and usually it's for creating interactive presentations like PowerPoint. But I thought, you'll have a screen and a slide, and you'll put an item on there, and you can click it, and you can take it to another slide. And I thought, well, why can't we repurpose this to make an explorable virtual environment rather than just a slideshow? So that's what I did. It's pretty simple. It's drag and drop. You can put in interactive buttons. I think our plan, it's like $250 a year to use it, which isn't terrible for library budgets. So yeah, it's pretty intuitive, just drag and drop. And yeah, you can make any kind of, just like I took pictures of the library, put them in as slides, and then put interactive widgets where you click on, take you to another slide. And it's pretty easy. Like if I can do it, anybody can do it.
What would you charge? I was just going to say, what would you charge me to do it?
Hey, I would help put together for free. I'm always, it's no worries. If we want to connect later on and get on a Zoom call or something, and I can show you how to do it, and I'm more than happy to share.
Yeah, no, I was going through this, and this is just, in today's world, this is where we have to go.
Mm-hmm.
This is fantastic. So thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to steal something that was copyrighted or, do something illegal.
Please borrow and steal as much as you need.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, Enid, for raising that and for your walking us through that, Michael. I'd like to call right now on Joseph Valdez from the New Mexico Department of Transportation. He has a question or comment. Go ahead, Joseph.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Michael, Dr. Molina, for a very interesting and encouraging presentation. I am impressed with your motivation to get something very important done. I've now been with the department here in New Mexico for going on 10 years, and I brought it was the best that I could do at the time. Transportation was also new to me, but I brought my affiliation, my professorship from the university realm into the department, which was at the time surprisingly not so welcome. There was more jealousy than there was, frankly, appreciation for the bridges that I was connecting in regards to having much better access to academic materials, not only physically, electronically, and otherwise, but creating some bridges with faculty that are internationally known from our universities. So I guess for Michael, I accidentally specialized in our state as the only transportation librarian. I work with the STEM librarians that are outstanding from the different universities, but not one of them really has specialized so much in transportation. So I'm wondering, Michael, with all of this, have you discovered, as I did, as an affiliate professor, and at the time there was nobody in the country that I could sort of model what I was trying to do with, but I'm wondering, have you sort of found yourself in the same sort of situation where among academic and university librarians and professors, you've specialized quite specifically in something that is valuable to the universities as civil engineers go? And there's much more that I could see on that, but I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. From an academic standpoint, finding someone who went from, PhD university to librarianship, it's not a common path. And I think among most, I would say 99% of everyone on the university side of things has been extremely supportive of me, of my background, of coming from history and not knowing anything about transportation. I think there's been nothing but huge support for that unique skill set that you bring. And I think coming into transportation, and librarianship especially, everything connects to librarianship. So no matter what you've specialized in, you're bringing that skill set to the librarianship. As a historian, it helps me with historical transportation. It helps me with research and writing and that aspect. So any aspect that you bring into transportation, I think, is a net win for the group. And anyone that doesn't see that, that's a shame that they're not leveraging your skill set that you bring. On the DOT side of things, I think, as everyone kind of knows, transportation librarians are becoming a rare, group of folks. So it was always nice to find communities to connect with. And I think especially, what Bob and David and Rosalind are doing with the Librarians Roundtable, I think these are so vital. So making sure you stay in connection with your peers and with having a supportive group, and like I mentioned, champions, is extremely vital. So I hope that answers your question. If not, I can elaborate more.
Thank you. That is well. Yeah, and there's always been a tremendous level of support coming from academia. It's within the department, and that part of it, the advocacy and the education of teaching, intelligent folks that are not academics. Engineers are technical experts in some cases, but they're not academics. They're not scholars, and so it was more of a challenge, and I was sort of bouncing off of that. It was more of a challenge to show how important that was, especially on a national level. We lost a lot of ground on that, but not because I've given up on the battle. I've learned much and a great deal from you folks on advocacy. And so I always appreciate hearing you all talk about that. Thank you.
That's a great point. If I may, I can talk to that a little bit more too. You have folks from such diverse backgrounds working at the DOT. And what I found, especially bringing from public libraries, is you meet people where they are, no matter where they're coming from, no matter what their background is. Everybody needs help with something. And finding a way to communicate how you can help with that, if you're able, is always key. And one of the big troubles that we've had is how to convince people, we're more than just it's more than just Google, contacting your librarian and having them do a literature review for you is going to get you so much better information than just Googling it yourself. It's like the difference between good information and great information is going through a librarian. So learning how to communicate that to folks, I think, has always been our struggle. So like you, this group has been very invaluable in learning how to do that.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Michael. We are, by my clock, we got about 4 minutes or so in the hour. And if anybody has any other questions or comments, I've really been enjoying all the back and forth here with the questions and as well as the comments that have been shared with Michael. If anybody else has anything within the next minute or so, I'm more than welcome to. I'm more than happy to step aside and let that be shared. Otherwise, Just I had a couple of quick things, Michael. I guess in the interest of time, I'll just ask you about the one, since it really does relate to the presentation. Whenisgood.com. You had mentioned that. Could you elaborate just a little bit more on what that's about? Because that's frankly that's new news to me.
Sure, yeah. So I'll share my screen real quick. So whenisgood.net. You can make a free account online, and it's good for setting up meetings. You can select, what dates you would like, excluding certain days. And anyway, for example, we can just look and see results of meetings. Like if we go to a survey and we go to, we can look at results and how many people have responded. For example, see what time works best for everybody. That's just a quick example. Not to reveal too much secret information or anything, but When is Good has been the best resources I've found to be able to plan a meeting.
Okay, well, thank you. Full confession, actually, now that when you showed it, I am familiar with it. I think Janet Daly has been pretty diligent about using that, if I'm recognizing it correctly, has been diligent about using that for the TRT subcommittee meetings. But still, it's good. I'm still trying to figure, like a lot of things, I'm still trying to figure out the technology there. So thank you, Michael. I think that that is about it, unless anybody else has any questions or comments for Michael. Again, Michael, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to give a presentation today on a topic of vital interest to many of us, I think, and I thank you for sharing your own wealth of expertise and insights with respect to how we can each hopefully move further along, or even just initiate those meaningful partnerships and projects with potential stakeholders. So I thank you very much. I assume it will be okay with you if anybody has anything that they'd like to check with you about, even after we're done today, that they can still contact you. You won't turn them away or anything?
Oh, of course, yeah. My door is always open, so please.
All right. Well, that's great. Thank you again, Michael. I really appreciate this. It's been a very informative and enjoyable hour too. So I really appreciate that. And on behalf of David Gantz and myself, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here with us today. Hope you likewise found it time well spent. And just wanted to quickly, we're at the top of the hour now. I just want to let everybody know, you may have already seen the announcement about this by way of email. Our next Transportation Librarians Roundtable is taking place next month, of course, on Thursday, April 14th. And our speaker for that TLR will be another valued member of our community, Kendra Stoll, a head librarian at the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans. And she'll be speaking to us concerning the digitized collections there, the wonderful digitized collections that they have there at the Caltrans Library, and also other historic materials too, I expect. Kendra does have a tough act to follow, of course, but I have every reason to believe that she will rise to the occasion and do her usual high quality job. If I'm not mistaken, I think Kendra might actually be here with us today. So Kendra, I don't know if you have anything you want to share or touch upon as far as your presentation goes. Hi.
Well, yeah, I agree. It's going to be a tough act to follow, Michael, but I hope everybody can come. I think you'll find it really interesting. Yeah, that's about all I can say for now because I'm still working on it.
Hey, looking forward to it. Thank you, Kendra.
Okay, you're welcome.
And please stay tuned, everyone, for further details about Kendra's presentation on April 14th. In the meantime, of course, mark your calendars for that date. It's not to be missed. So once again, thank you to everyone. Have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. And we'll be in contact with all of you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
thank
bye.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, Bob.
Goodbye. Thank you.